Hello everyone. Good morning. We are here for another episode of our Wired for Success, and we are concentrating on exam anxiety. Why? Because a lot of our young people have been going through exam, will be going through exam. It's actually the period of exams. So we thought we'll give it a few series, a few episodes on exam anxiety. My name is Patience Modevi, and my colleague here is Steve Costello. We will be on the podcast today talking about exam anxiety.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. So, what is it? Where does exam anxiety come from? Well, there are a number of psychological and emotional factors, and many of them are very, very simple. So, for example, last week we mentioned I can't speak, the pressure to perform. The pressure to perform is placed upon us by ourselves, the exam candidate. It's placed on us by sometimes by parents or guardians. It's placed upon us by teachers, lecturers, all kinds of people who have some kind of stake in the examination process. But we need to think about those things, because if we don't consider that there is an examination anxiety around, then it's likely going to affect the results, the performance of the person trying to sit the exam. So what can we do about simple things that we can do? First of all, we need to listen. We need to look and listen. Look at our young people. Listen to what they're telling us. Are they using avoidance tactics so they don't have to study? Are they going to their room and hiding on their phones, or hiding under the duvet with a book, which is not actually about the exams? What are they doing? Take some notes. Notice what they're up to. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them what sort of things are happening in relation to the exams. The pressure. Is there pressure? Are the teachers putting on pressure at school? If that's true, how can we manage it? What can we do? So there are a whole number of things. And as I said to patients a few minutes ago, we need to be thoughtful parents. We need to be thoughtful parents in a whole host of stuff that we have to do with our young people. But particularly in relation to exams, we need to be thoughtful parents. So Patience, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I feel the same, and what I feel as well is that the idea of bringing, not only being thoughtful, but also considering that our children are unique. So what worked with one child is not necessarily what will be working with another child. I think that's really important to think about that. So, for example, the way my mom used to deal with my brother would be different from the way that it would be with myself.
So what about the fear of failure? So let's just think about that for a minute. So we all know, as young people are very much aware, students are very much aware that if we fail our examinations, there will be some kind of repercussions. Something will happen because of that failure. If we're at university, we may well have to sit them again in the summer If we fail them again in the summer, we may well have to take the whole year again. So there are a lot of possibilities. If we fail our A levels, we may need 3 A levels to do our dream degree. But if we only get 2, we may not be offered a place on our dream degree at the institution of our choosing. We may have to take a lower result or a lower priority first. So we need to be very aware of this. Performance pressure can lead to a fear of failure. So we need to help overcome that fear of failure. So exams are also high stakes. That's what I've just been talking about. The stakes are quite high. We need 3 A levels to move forward. We have to get 3 A levels to move forward. Otherwise, we have to dilute our own expectations. So before I move on, Patience, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Coming back to this. So, for example, one thing that I would say is that is it really that important? And don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that it's not important for you to be getting all the marks you are supposed to be getting. But if we were asking ourselves this question, is it really important for my child to get those grades? Is it going to be life-changing if they don't get the grade? What is going to be the impact of them not getting those grades that they need for their course or their program? To be honest with you, I think we put a lot of emphasis, or parents put a lot of emphasis on the right now. There's a need to get, Steve was talking about, this pressure of needing to have certain marks to be able to go in there. And what if you have to do another year? Is it really going to be something that is going to be bad for you to do another year? So if you think yourself back at when you were a teenager, as you put yourself as a parent, you think at when you were a teenager, is there anything that you could have done maybe twice? Would it have made a difference to your life right now if you made it twice or if you made it in one time? So, for example, I'm going to go a little bit away from the exam anxiety, but it's a bit the same like with passing your driving license. Some people have their driving license and they pass it in one go. Yes. Some people will pass it maybe 2 times or 3 times, or I don't know how many times. Does it change from the idea that they can drive or they can't drive? They can drive. Nobody, after 10 years of you driving, no one is going to say, oh, you're driving for 10 years. Did you pass your driving license in one go or in 2 go? No one is going to say that. And I think when we put ourselves in that perspective, we as a parent, or you as a parent, you'll be less inclined to put so much more pressure on your child, because you'll be like, you know what? Life is a give and take. Life is an experience, and it is a time for them to experience. So if there is a case where your child needs to redo another year, what I want to ask you now is it really that bad? Will it be that bad? Will it be something that is going to be really difficult for your child? Maybe think of that. Think of that perspective.
Yeah, I think there's some great points in there, Patience. So really is the starting point. We are all different. We all respond to situations in different ways. So, for example, some people, let's talk about physical symptoms for a minute, very quickly. Let's think about physical symptoms. So there are physiological responses to stress. We can pretty much write down what they are, because they're very well researched. They're very straightforward to understand. So we may find that if we're feeling stressed, our heart increases in its beats per minute. Our behavior might kind of change a little bit. We might be a little bit more seemingly hyperactive. We're not really, but we may seem like that because we've got this nervous energy building up inside of us. So that may start to happen. We may start to sweat. We may feel uncomfortable because of our body temperature. We may have muscle tension, kind of cramping in the hands or in the arms and legs. We may feel this kind of tension. It's very common for people to feel tension in their stomach when they're feeling stress. They get a tight feeling in the stomach, and it seems to pull everything in. It's easy to misinterpret all of those feelings for fear. I've got a stomach ache. I'm scared. So it's easy to misinterpret this kind of stress and anxiety over the exam. A little bit of stress and a little bit of anxiety is actually quite good for us. But what we don't want to do is reinforce the stresses and the anxieties. So we need to keep them under control. We need to enable young people to understand it's natural to feel a bit stressed. It's exam time. But let's think for a minute about other factors that can contribute to this stress. Being compared to other people, being compared to other students is stressful, terribly stressful for some people. I certainly disliked being compared to my peers in maths, because I knew that I wasn't the best mathematician in the class by a long, long way. And I disliked being compared to the really clever ones, because we were just not in the same league. But it wasn't helpful to be compared. So why compare? It didn't motivate me to do better. It kind of had the opposite effect. So sometimes that where we think we're doing a good thing by motivating, by saying, look what they're doing, we're actually not doing a great thing. So let's be in touch and be aware. Patience. What do you think about this this kind of motivation?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, I think we as parents, you are human, and there are things that you're going to do because of your upbringing or because of the way you've grown up, and because of life. Society is basically the I want to say the place for comparison. Everything is pushing us to compare ourselves to others, and everything is pushing for anyone to compare each other. But in this idea of exam and what you can do to kind of like minimize exam anxiety is really to put yourself in the shoes of your child. And what I mean by that is not only taking in consideration what you've experienced yourself, but what you've learned along the way, but also seeing it from their point of view. Some children, some teenagers will be able to thrive on the pressure, on exactly what we've talked about just now and saying we shouldn't be doing. Some children will thrive on that. And this is also something that you need to take in consideration. Some children will want you to push them even more. Some children will want to have some children will want to have this idea that you are doing more to push them. And some teenagers will need the space. They will need for you to create a space that is comforting, a space where the stress in the environment is going lower. So, for example, where most of everything. So there's a parent, and I remember when she was doing that, I was thinking, why is she doing everything for her daughter? But it was in the time and in the space of the exam period, she didn't want any external factor to come and create disruption in her daughter's mind. So what she did is she took over the things that was to be done in the house, and she made it so that she did not have any to think much more about other things. She only had to make time for herself for exams. And I think in this way you are creating like an environment for your child that is going to be much more comforting and much more easier. I think that's what I would add to this.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some great points in there. And whilst you were talking, Patience, something crossed my mind about a young woman who was actually a client in the year, well, less than a year, 6 months before she was due to go to university. She was a client. She had some challenges at work. Was that she had a very strong perfectionism mindset. She believed that if she had, for example, a chemistry examination to take, that she should not expect to get less than 90%. That was her line that she made for herself. She expected never to get less than 90% in her examinations. In some of her examinations, she got over 90%. She's a very bright young woman. But in one or two, she didn't reach the 90, and she felt very, very disappointed. So she clearly had this thing going on about perfectionism. But perfectionism created in her anxieties that she wasn't going to achieve her targets. They were her targets. That was her thinking. There was much more to it than I'm sharing with you here and now. But the pressure that she put herself under because of her perfectionism was quite immense. And she didn't enjoy the exam period because of it. She didn't enjoy or allow herself to think, in just a few months, I'm going to go to Dublin University. She lives in Ireland. So she didn't allow herself that excitement of going to Dublin University because she was too busy, lost in the perfectionism idea. So we need to think carefully about that. Are we as parents being too perfectionist with our young people? Are our own young people being extremely perfectionists themselves and placing pressures on themselves that they don't really need? So we need to think about those things as well. Now, I'm really aware that what we've done here in this episode is we've brought up a lot of challenges that people have during exam periods. So what do we need to do about all of these challenges? As I said at the very beginning, something that Patience and I had talked about, we need to think about being responsible parents. So what can we do to alleviate some of the challenges that our children, young people face during exam times? What can we do? Not what can school do, not what can teachers do. What can we as parents do? How can we help to manage? We have a stake in this. And the most simple of those stakes, perhaps, is that if our children do well, they're going to be happy. So that's a good one to focus on. But they need to do well within their limitations, within their strengths.
Yeah, that's right. And
So
and
we seem to
and
be,
oh, yeah, that's right. And this is the idea. The idea is that we we create a time, we create a space, we create an environment that is inclusive of whatever not whatever, but the exam period. So for today, we will be finishing now. Really sorry, apologizing for all the cuts, and unfortunately, technology is not with us today. But we'll be back for another episode. Remember that just in a few minutes, we'll be talking about the practical session for teens in regards to managing exam anxiety. But for now, we'll leave you and we'll speak to you in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for being with us.
okay.